gonna get straight to the point. After playing 3 hours of Immortals Fenyx Rising, I can safely say it's like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild had a baby together. Immortals, I'm shortening the title for obvious reasons, is shaping up to take the most inspiration from its parent Breath of the Wild in its setting, core game mechanics, and quite a few other bits. And that's me being generous with the term inspiration. Odyssey has a fair amount of influence on Immortals 2, and I'm trying really hard not to push this baby metaphor too far, but Immortals takes after its ancient Grecian parent in a major aesthetic way. I'm going to stop myself and the metaphor right now and get down to it. So here's 9 ways Immortals Fenyx Rising is like Breath of the Wild and Assassin's Creed Odyssey had a baby together. To summarise Immortals Fenyx Rising, it's the story of Phoenix, who has to save the Greek gods from the grip of Typhon, the deadliest and most dangerous creature in ancient Greece, who has broken free from the underworld Tartarus and deprived the gods of their powers. Free the gods and they'll help you in your quest by bequeathing you their magic abilities and providing general moral support. Thankfully, this is a toned-down version of ancient Greek myth because, as anyone will know, in ancient Greek myth, you don't really want the gods taking any interest in you because that doesn't tend to turn out well for, well, anyone. Just like in Breath of the Wild, in Immortals you get to explore the entire world from the very beginning. Yeah, you might run into some big bads that can beat you into bloody red jam or encounter puzzles that require skills you haven't even begun to master, but no one is going to stop you from poor decision making when you start Immortals. If only that were true in real life. Anyway, there's no island to be stuck on while you complete a tutorial, no linear questline. The whole place is open to you according to the briefing I was given about the game. Mind you, I didn't see this in action myself as the part I played is from midway through the game. This'll sound familiar too. In Immortals, you don't get given a mount to start off with, at least not that I heard of. Instead, you scour the land to find mounts to tame, who you can then ride across the landscape to your heart's content. Galloping uses up their stamina meter, which is the same as your own stamina meter. And don't worry, I know that looks familiar, but I'll get to that bit soon. I didn't get to tame any mounts during my time in Immortals, so I'm not sure how that works precisely, but this message in the loading screen said that you have to approach them carefully to avoid getting noticed and spooking them. Does that remind you of anything? Although I will just say that there aren't any stables to board your mounts at, and one of those huge horse heads on the horizon is very hard to miss indeed. Instead, you summon them from your inventory, though only the Grecian gods know where they're killing time until then. In Immortals, you have a stamina stick next to Phoenix that depletes when you climb, use powerful attacks, and fly across the world. It's a stick, not a circle, everyone. A stick, not a circle. Just gonna put that out there. You can eat mushrooms or stamina potions mid-flight and mid-battle to up the meter if it starts to look low, and thankfully the mushrooms aren't the kind that are only edible once. Scattered across the regions in Immortals are activities that put Phoenix and you to the test, and they're kind of like longer versions of the Korok Seed trials. There's something for everyone in these activities. Their official name is Myth Challenges and, to be fair, they come in a bunch of different flavours that are more distinct than the Korok trials. There's one to suit you whether you're into art, archery, flying, or big glowing balls. Get your mind out of the gutter, for God's sake. These kinds of glowing balls. Fresco challenges give you a set of painted blocks which have to be pushed into the right place to create a picture. But there are enemies surrounding the switches that unlock said blocks that would much rather the art remained in the cubist style. It takes a bit of fiddling, but these fresco puzzles will keep that brain of yours ticking over. Odysseus challenges test your mastery of arrows by guiding Apollo's arrow, one of your special attacks, through axe handles to light a brazier at the end. These are pretty easy, as you can slow the speed of your arrow with the left analog stick. And you can get a taste of the course by exploring it beforehand. You'll need to get rid of Typhon's influence along the way too. Navigation challenges are for those of you who like to feel the wind in your hair and on your skin and through your armour, as you'll be soaring through the obstacles on Daedalus's wings, as he's very kindly lent them to you. Just don't go all Icarus and fly too close to the sun, because that's a bad time. Keeping the momentum going is key here, as you'll catch gusts of air to push yourself upwards and avoid the lasers, while carefully managing your stamina stick. Stick! Not a circle, people. Finally, there's constellation challenges. Stumble upon these and you'll quickly figure out that you have to find glowing balls, don't laugh, and put them in a specific pattern on a grid, but getting said balls is tricky. Each one is locked behind its own mini-puzzle, which will have you using other balls to unlock. I said don't laugh. So these constellation challenges are by far the ones that will tickle your brain the most. Aside from myth challenges, there are epic chests, which are guarded by more puzzles, lyre challenges, where you memorise tunes on an itty-bitty human-sized lyre and then replicate it on this big boy, and night chests, which can only be opened when the moon is high in the sky, but are protected by a ton of powerful foes. As you might have spotted from what you've seen already, lasers are a big part of how these puzzles and challenges work. However, although they sure do sting, if you have enough health, they're definitely cheesable. And as Immortals is generous with the amount of pomegranates you can hold, which restore health, you can work your way through puzzles by chomping down on the fruit and gritting your teeth when a laser slices at you. Just don't let Hades see you eating those pomegranate seeds, or he might get some ideas. Ever since Typhon burst forth from Tartarus, vaults have also burst forth from that hellish plane, but luckily these gateways have puzzle obstacle courses on the other end and not fire and brimstone. Well, no more than strictly necessary anyway. In these vaults you need to complete said puzzles or tests to get a bolt of Zeus's lightning, which is then used to upgrade Phoenix. These vaults look, feel and play like they're inspired by Breath of the Wild's shrines, as they're optional areas to test your skill and give you something to improve Phoenix with. Boy, Immortals sure does like Breath of the Wild, huh? Well, you know what they say about imitation and flattery, right? And now time for the bits of Immortals that come from Old Papa or Mama Odyssey. First up, just like in the ancient Greek adventure, you have a bird companion named Phosphorus, which comes to your aid in battle if you use up some of your stamina to summon it. You can't look through Phosphorus's eyes like in Odyssey, but there is another thing lifted straight from the game. Apollo's arrow, which I mentioned before, is a straight-up replica of the Predator Shot ability, which also lets you control the arrow in flight to direct exactly where it goes. The control in Immortals is more precise, as you can slow down the arrow and speed up at will, but still, it's basically the same ability with a few bells and whistles chucked on. Except the arrow is completely silent, just to make that clear. What is that in the distance? Well, if you have Breath of the Wild's Shaker Slate or Phoenix's eyes, I guess, at hand, you can find out. Yup, another thing that smells just like Breath of the Wild is Immortals' Far Sight ability, which lets you see far into the distance by pressing down onto the analog stick. Useful, but awfully familiar. So much to do on the map. So many places to see, and luckily in Immortals, there's so many pins to choose from when it comes to nailing down what's around you. Go into the map and you can place down pins to mark places you want to visit, and you can change their colour so you don't get confused between them. Granted, there aren't different icons like there are in Breath of the Wild, but when you first place down markers in Breath of the Wild, it does start off with different coloured basic icons before you get to the fancy options, so make of that what you will. Nighttime is a bad time in Immortals, and that's not just because the only thing lighting your way is either a giant red angry tornado or your Phoenix companion Phosphorus. At night, creatures seemed to be stronger and more persistent, and, just to spice things up a bit, there are also giant tentacles that appear from the ground and try to hit you. From what I could tell, these tentacles don't just appear randomly, but they seem to follow you around when you're on foot, though it might be limited to a certain portion of the map. They hurt when they hit you, and the whole night being more dangerous thing is just like Breath of the Wild's propensity for more enemies to spawn when it gets dark and spooky.
Link, please be careful.
So yes, Immortals has a lot of similarities to Breath of the Wild and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but it also does do its own thing every so often, and honestly, it's a shame that this uniqueness isn't lent into more. When you do puzzles one after the other, you attract the attention of Typhon, who sends a giant red tornado down into a section of the map, which throws out meteors that explode around you as you go about your business. This tornado lasts maybe 5 minutes, but you get the sense that you are really pissing Typhon off, and it makes you feel like you're actually having an effect on the world. Get close enough to the tornado and a wraith appears and starts to hunt you down. Now, I couldn't get the wraith to find me, but I'm assuming that you two duke it out when you run into each other as a kind of mini-boss fight. See, that's cool. I want more of that stuff. But, unfortunately, during my time with Immortals Fenyx Rising, despite the awesome tornado feature, I did find the story lacking, as there were hardly any NPCs that I could interact with, besides some soldiers that wanted my autograph, and honestly, after running around, smashing up Cyclops and Minotaurs, who can blame them?
Hey, Phoenix! Can you autograph a stone for me later?
And that's 9 ways Immortals Fenyx Rising is like Breath of the Wild and Assassin's Creed Odyssey had a baby together. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to Eurogamer for more videos about, what else? Video games! We release a new video every single day, so there's always something to watch. Now it's time for me to go and dive back into Breath of the Wild and maybe finally take on the Mulder King. See you next time.